California, and it is just great to have you with us today. And many of you hopefully went to the trade show at the LA Convention Center last week, and wow, we did have a great time. We did not record those, and so that's just tremendous treasure trove that went out into the air and disappeared, except for the people that heard it. And for those of you that did hear it, hopefully you've created some action steps and you are implementing immediately, taking at least a couple steps to make that knowledge really convert it to power with action. And anyway, if you would like closed caption, you can go to Facebook, AOA USA, search that up, and you can catch us on Facebook even right now, live. And anyway, so AOA has been around for over 40 years, and our goal is your success with your investment property. And we do that really, we want to keep you in the know, keep you updated on the latest legislation, make sure that you have the right forms and everything. And if you're not a member, there is a 100% money back guarantee for your first year. And anyway, you also may have missed it if you're in San Diego. We did show up big time at the San Diego City Council meeting on Tuesday to no avail, but it was great to see all the members wearing white, and just a really good time that we have. And another one that you may have missed, sometimes people don't catch our emails, don't read everything in the magazine, but we do have a 3-part series on common California building code violations. So no matter what city you're in the state, there is one California building code. And so we have an expert in that area that covers that. It is not on YouTube, and you will only find it inside the member portal. It's an exclusive with a guy that set up the LA code enforcement program. And so you'll want to catch that, his experience distilled into those 3 videos, decades of experience distilled there. It's amazing for sure. And then upcoming, we have a few in-person events, and in Oakland on May 3rd, how to eliminate estate tax and protect against lawsuits. And you definitely want to be there. If you're in the Bay Area, we encourage you to be there for that one. On May 9th and 10th in Sherman Oaks and Buena Park, we have Dennis Block speaking on how to find that perfect tenant. So tenant screening for today. And definitely you have to take Section 8 at this point. And there's a whole lot there that he'll be unpacking for us, so it'll be great. Next week online, we have California Rent Control Explained and so this is your essential guide that will be online, and we will take that down pretty quick just because we want that to be a member benefit, but we'll let the general public have that for a little bit. May 11th, there's a legislative update for the Bay Area. On May 18th, why earthquake insurance is a must-have. May 25th, ADA and accessible routes. So there's lots of good information coming up. You may want to subscribe if you like this kind of content. You may want to subscribe to the channel. And anyway, definitely at the end of this presentation, we're going to field some questions. If you're watching from AOAUSA.com, there's a blue help button down at the bottom right side. If you click on that, you'll be able to enter your question. They'll funnel that over to me, and then we can get that question answered. And so without further ado, we want to give a thank you to our sponsor, Petra Capital Properties. They have 100 years of experience collectively. They have 5 offices throughout the country. They've done $10 billion in property value, and their goal is to preserve capital and protect income. That sounds pretty good. Preserve capital and protect income. And they have a proprietary data technology model that I find intriguing, and I hope that you'll learn more about it. And so now for our speaker today, he's a founder and managing partner at Petra Capital Properties. He has over 35 years of experience, and some people, they have, every year should be, you can count, depending on how you count that. If you have a lot of experiences, then 35 years is 35 years. If you just have one experience over a 35-year period, it's like you have 1 year. But when you're a learner and when you're trying all kinds of things and exploring and pushing the envelope, then you end up with lots of good stories and unique ways to maximize your return on your investment. And so it's my pleasure to introduce our speaker today, Brad Watt.
Hello?
Hey, Brad.
Hey, Jeff.
All right, there we are. We made it.
I think so. I hope so. Thank you. Let's see. Are we ready to roll?
Yes, we are. So you could hit slideshow on that thing, or
all right.
There we go.
Perfect. Everything viewable on your end?
Yeah, looks good.
All right. Thanks so much. Thanks for the intro, and Apartment Owners Association. Thank you for your time and participation in this call. This is the second time I've had a chance to be with you all, and we did a live webinar last year, and we've got several scheduled for this year. So thanks again, Jeff, for the opportunity, and hopefully this will be good content. I know you guys have other 1031 DST advisors and specialists on your calls occasionally. And so our goal today is to tell you a little bit about Petra, but more importantly, tell you why we're different. And I think ultimately, I think it was Simon Sinek who wrote the book, Start With Why. People don't necessarily want to know what you do. They want to know why they should know you. And so hopefully after this call today, you'll have a better understanding of why Petra and why DSTs and how we are different. I just want to also say there's a few people from our team on this call. I just want to welcome them as well. We do have a great team, a theme, and a track record, which I think is vitally important in any business or industry. But particularly now, as you all know, as one economist put it, we're living in the everything crisis, where everything, everywhere, and all at the same time is erupting. And I think that pretty well describes where we are in the economy right now and the financial markets. As you know, they're somewhat correlated, and we're seeing a lot of dislocations, a lot of disruptions, and a lot of repricing of risk in the markets right now. And we think that it's absolutely critical. And we deal with investors every day, as you can imagine, in our business. But we talk to, just investors from all over the country, from Maine to Hawaii, which is where our investors are located, our 1031 investors. And we're very blessed to have a national platform and just great clients. And they tell us every day when we talk to them, they say, we've worked hard to accumulate wealth, and it's taken us years to build this fortune. We want to hang on to it. We want to keep it. So at this point and at this moment in our lives, we are asking Petra and your team to build us a portfolio that represents stability, income, and growth in that order. We want stability because we can't remake it. So we need preservation of capital. That's job one. The second thing, it's a very close second, and that's protection of income. Protect our income, make sure it's durable, sustainable, and consistent to get us through early and late stage retirement years. And the third thing is we need some inflation protected growth, because obviously we've got inflationary forces in the economy, but we equally have deflationary forces going on at the same time. So we want to prepare for downside risk with deflation, but we also need to build a portfolio for upside inflation protection. So stability, income, and growth in that order. And that's our investment mandate. And that's what we try to do every day for investors. It's no surprise. Well, let me give you maybe a little quick summary before we get going here. I need to first and foremost make a disclosure. These are securities that we're going to talk about today, private placement securities. And so just to be clear, we are not making an offer to purchase or sell any securities on this call. We're simply providing education and research and information regarding DSTs. And again, how Petra specializes in personalized and customized portfolio construction for our clients. So just to be clear, these are the requisite disclosures and disclaimers that I need to make, but hopefully everybody's clear that we're not making an offer to purchase today. Discussion overview today. I want to talk a little bit about Petra Capital Properties, again, who we are, what we do, and most importantly, why we're different. I want to talk a little bit about our strategic partnerships and who we can help with our 1031 customization and personalization planning that we do for our clients. We also want to talk about 1031 exchanges. Again, most of you on this call as real estate owners have either done exchanges or very familiar with them, and particularly living in California. You want to be particularly attuned to 1031 exchanges in this environment, given the current tax laws and legislation that's underway for additional tax penalties coming your way in California, which many of you have already experienced or heard about, the ULA, the mansion tax, which is now an additional surtax on top of other wealth taxes that are being imposed. So it's probably never been a more pertinent conversation for California real estate owners than to talk about 1031 exchanges and ability to diversify your property investments. We want to talk about how DSTs and 1031s work together. Again, DST, Delaware Statutory Trust, is a subset or an alternative strategy to a 1031 exchange. It is considered direct real estate ownership. So 1031 and DSTs do work together. And DSTs are simply a means of being able to diversify your holdings into passive real estate portfolios that provide stabilized income and potential growth without the hassles of day-to-day property management, which I think most of you would agree. You're done with the tenants, trash, and toilets. And as many would say, we're looking for the lifestyle 3 T's, which are called T times travel and tennis. So there you go. There's your alliteration of the 3 T's. And then we're going to talk a little bit, the last thing we want to mention today is our personal optimized property portfolio. Again, this is the secret sauce. This is the differentiator, if you will, between Petra and some of our competitors in the market. We have developed a proprietary data, risk analytics, and DST data research platform that works together, the research platform and the data analytics, to allow us to quickly and efficiently create multi-asset and multi-strategy real estate investment portfolios for our clients. It's a highly customized and personalized solution that allows the investor to have active participation in the portfolio construction, but at the same time getting passive income, multiple streams of passive income. We think that's critical. So those are things we want to talk about today. For many of you in California, again, it's no surprise that you all are dealing with extraordinarily adversarial landlord and tenant relationships. The laws in California have continued to tighten and to strengthen in favor of the tenants. And as a result, we're seeing a new social contract emerge between landlords and tenants in California. And as, again, 1031 independent 1031 specialists who work with clients all over the country, we see, as you could expect, a growing percentage of our client base coming out of California as they look to diversify away their risk and their capital into other markets that allow them to balance their risks and still be able to achieve their goals of diversified property ownership with future capital appreciation. And they feel like those opportunities are more representative inside of a Delaware statutory trust structure. So that's where, again, we're able to help a lot of California investors who are fleeing the state with their capital and maybe their residency and moving into other states. What's that? Hello?
Oh,
am I still live? I hear. Hello? Jeff? Hello? Am I still live?
You're coming through on this end. I think there was somebody who may have been unmuted on the other end.
Okay.
It was just a side conversation. I assume that you're still broadcasting.
Okay. Let me see.
You're good.
Yep. Good. Okay. Thank you. I just heard some background noise. So, just to kind of put a fine point on it, we are going to, let me just eliminate that chat. We are talking to a lot of California investors right now. And we think now is a time to pursue a flight to quality and a flight to safety. A little bit about Petra Capital Properties. We are an independent real estate investment advisory firm specializing in pre-structured or fractional 1031 property interest, again referred to as Delaware Statutory Trust. We've got 100 years of combined real estate investment experience, and that's collectively as a team in all aspects of real estate acquisitions, financing, capital markets, operations, and dispositions. So we are a real estate investment advisory firm with a deep domain experience in real estate, and not just real estate securities, but the underlying fundamentals of real estate, which we think is critically important that you get it right in today's environment. Again, we specialize in personal optimized property portfolio solutions. These are customized and personalized portfolios for our clients, actively constructed by the client using our database and our technology tools, and we'll provide the advice and the recommendations to go with it, with our background and our experience. But at the end of the day, the client gets exactly the portfolio, in our case, that matches their risk tolerance, their investment objectives, and their return requirements. Highly customized, highly personalized. We have access to multiple DST sponsors. Again, we've been doing this as a firm for many, many years, have a lot of deep relationships at the sponsor level. Last year, when the inventories were so tight that there wasn't enough product to go around to meet the demand, we were able to access portfolios or access properties to build our portfolios through what was a very constrained environment last year. And that's because of our deep relationships and preferred access to many of our sponsored companies. And many times we can access properties before they've even come to the market. And that allows us to even get a jump start on building our portfolios without all the competition that you have typically in the space when properties are limited and demand is high. So who benefits from DSTs? What's pretty obvious, you as the 1031 investor and seller, you're able to access properties immediately with identification, meeting the 45-day window, and certainty of close. It's so important that in this environment, we can't, I see a great number still, a high percentage of people who are exiting their 45-day window when they're trying to do a direct purchase on a single loan property. They do not have all of their due diligence and their underwriting completed. So they're exiting that 45-day window with execution risk. If something were to come up in underwriting post 45 days, the property falls through due to something that fails, they don't have, they're taxpayer. So that is a very high penalty to pay for your 1031 exchange not being completely buttoned up before you exit your 45-day window. So the DSTs provide that security, that safety on that 45-day window, and doesn't risk any type of expiration or failed closing. Broad diversification, again, key is that DST, think of it as building blocks. You can assemble Legos or building blocks multiples of them to create diversified and customized portfolios. You want to get rid of the day-to-day active burden of property management. That's exactly what most investors, again, are looking to. The properties they operate are tired, they're tired, and they're looking to transition from active property management to lifestyle income. Again, huge benefit in the DST structure. And then, of course, you find that most people can increase their cash flow. They've owned their properties forever, a lot of repair and maintenance, a lot of CapEx, and not to mention sometimes their rents are still somewhat below market. They haven't been able to raise rents as much, or they've got tenants in there that they're quite loyal to and they don't want to raise the rents to market rates. So they're really under earning in terms of their potential. When they move into the DSTs, many times they can not only get that passive income, but get a raise in terms of their total cash flow. We also work with real estate agents and brokers. Again, some of you on this call might be in that category. We do work with a lot of brokers, a lot of agents in the real estate, commercial real estate as well, farm and ranch community. We found that many people typically will not sell a property until they know what they're going to buy. So having the DST structure, the pre-structured DST solution that's already cash flowing, that can be identified from the get-go, this allows the broker, the agent, to work with their clients and actually show them what they can buy. So now they're more motivated to sell. And the third group we work with is CPAs, property managers, qualified intermediaries, what we would call professionals that are in real estate professionals that are in the downstream structure of real estate economics, if you will. So these are folks that work at every level of real estate and along the supply chain. And we can work with those folks again in helping them identify turnkey in-place solutions for their 1031 placement. Review of 1031 exchanges, very quick. As again, many of you know, the IRC Section 1031 has been on the books of the IRS since the early 20s, been revived several times. It's had a few near-death experiences with regard to repeal. So far, so good. As we all know, real estate represents a very big chunk of our GDP, our annual GDP. So to repeal or restrict in any way 1031 exchanges would have a huge chilling effect on our economy. So we believe that in spite of some of the challenges with our federal government and state governments for increased tax revenue, we're going to see the 1031 business continue to stay alive and well. And if anything, it's going to be more driven through demographics as investors age out and are looking for transitional lifestyle income without paying the taxes. Properties, of course, in a 1031 must be used in an active trade or business or held for investment purposes. It can't be used in a stock or trade or held for inventory. So there are some restrictions on properties that apply or that qualify for 1031s. You do need a qualified intermediary, essentially a custodian, to hold the cash for your exchange. You cannot take constructive receipt. Replacement properties must be identified within 45 days. Again, the elegance and the simplicity of a DST is that the structure's already in place. The properties are cash flowing. Investors can move right in. And typically from the day of closing to the day we replace the properties through a portfolio that we can build, that timeline is 5 to 7 days. Again, it moves very quickly because we have access, we have the relationships, and we have the technology platform to quickly and efficiently construct your replacement property portfolio. Replacement property identification is usually limited to 3 properties with the DSTs because you're able to build a portfolio, more of a property index, if you will, or a fund. You're able to use you will use the 200% rule, which allows you to exchange up to 200% of your underlying relinquished property value. So the way we get around the 3 property rule in the DST to maximize diversification is we use the 200% rule, which allows us to identify more properties, provided we don't exceed 2 times the exchange value. So what is the problem for most investors, DST or 1031 investors? Taxes. We all know the combined tax rates, particularly in California with the new ULA luxury tax, or the mansion tax as it's called. It's an additional, I believe, 4.5%. depending on the price point. If it's over 5 million or over 10 million, you've got your state income tax at 13+%. And then you have all of your other municipal, local, and regulatory taxes in addition to federal capital gains and recapture tax. So if you add it all up, your blended tax rate approximates 40 to 45% in most cases in California. It's a huge tax. It's a huge tax bill to pay, and it cuts down on your earning power, of course, for the rest of your life. As I say, paying taxes is a two-base out or a double play in baseball. You don't just pay the taxes and lose capital, but you lose the earning power, the compounded wealth effect on that lost capital. So it really is a compounded loss when you do pay those taxes. 45-day property identification period, time. People do not have time to actively, especially last year when there was a super hyper competitive market and there was tons of investors looking for the same properties at the same price point, and it created bidding wars. And as you know, many deals fell through last year simply because people could not find the property in the right time. And if you don't find it in the right time, you will be a taxpayer. And again, unless you want to take that risk of identifying a property that you haven't fully underwritten before your 45 days. So taxes, time is a big problem for many investors to locate a suitable replacement property. And then the access, they can't find it. Again, the goal of a DST, the real genius or the secret sauce behind a DST is you're allowing investors, you're democratizing real estate investing so that the average investor can access the same quality of properties that many of the REITs, the pension funds, and the insurance companies are buying. So we consider that a huge opportunity and democratization for the average millionaire next door, as Robert Kiyosaki would say, to be able to get to the same types of properties that the large REITs would be buying. And that's the quality of the real estate you're seeing in the DST structures that we typically work with. ABCs of DSTs, again, just a quick primer on Delaware Statutory Trust. It's a legal trust, typically incorporated in Delaware. It's set up for business purposes. So these are real estate trusts. They are not business trusts. So they do qualify as direct real estate ownership. So again, DSTs and direct property ownership are synonymous. DST holds the real property. It's a structure or a wrapper that holds the real property. The investors are simply beneficial owners in a DST that passes directly through to the property ownership. So it is direct. It is the same for tax purposes as if you were to buy your own property and manage it yourself. The difference here, of course, is it's third-party turnkey management. DSTs are offered as either all cash or modestly leveraged. Again, many investors present about half that don't have any debt to replace. As you guys all know in this call, you got to replace even or up in exchange value on a 1031 exchange. So whatever your relinquished property sale price is, debt and equity both have to be replaced. Otherwise, you'll end up triggering either cash boot or mortgage boot. So the idea is that we can match exactly the capital stack of the investor with the required equity that they come out with, as well as any debt that needs to be replaced. Fractional property interests in DSTs are considered replacement properties, as we said, for a 1031 exchange. It is the fastest growing segment of 1031 exchanges. Roughly 30% of all real estate transactions are done as 1031 exchanges. That's about somewhere in the $150 to $200 billion a year in 1031 exchange value, in total value. DSTs represent about 10% of that market. Last year, DSTs were about $20 billion in equity and debt. So maybe slightly over 10% of the total 1031 exchange market is DSTs. And the only reason it's not bigger is because most people don't know about them. And that's what we deal with every day. That's what our focus is educating investors on the benefits of passive DST ownership. And then again, each investor receives a proportionate share back to our DST attribution. Each investor receives a share of the cash flow from the DST. There will be multiple investors, so it is a co-ownership structure, and every investor receives their ratable portion of percentage ownership based on their equity investment, as well as the share of the cash flow that comes from the DST. Again, a time for quality and a time for change. Every time we talk to investors every day, we hear we are not interested in taking risk in this environment. We've accumulated wealth. We've concentrated our risk for building wealth. Now we want to diversify away risk by diversified property ownership. So concentrated for wealth. Now investors want to diversify for safety. Typical investor presents, as you can see, with a property that's old. Again, average age of most investors, we see about 76% of all multifamily rental stock in this country, 76% of single family and multifamily rental stock is owned by individual investors. That's a big number. We're talking a few $1 trillion is owned by individual investors in rental property throughout the United States. The average age of those investors is about 62. The average age of the property is between 18 and 21 years old, according to a recent report by ULI. So the properties are older, the investors are older, and the investors are tired of active property management, and it's time to transition. So typically a client presents with active management, older properties with deferred maintenance in many cases where they'd have to write a check to upgrade the properties. Again, many investors are tired of doing capital calls. They don't want to spend more money on a property that theoretically could be decreasing in value the longer they hold it. They have a low tax basis. They've depreciated the property down to practically zero, meaning that they don't have any more efficiency of their income. So they're paying more taxes on their rental income. They're not getting any write-offs for depreciation anymore, which is obviously increasing their after-tax income. So they've got to be able to build a new basis, which you can do through a DST by adding more debt. They have limited diversification. Again, number one determining factor in real estate investing, or any investment for that matter, is diversification. The number one determining factor of investment outcomes is how well you're diversified. Not how high your yield is, but how well have you spread out your risk to be able to offset any downside, which we all know downside is just a part of where we are. It's where we've been. And ultimately, I think the recession that we're talking about, if we're not in one, it's right around the corner. And the question is not will we have one, but how well are you prepared to go into a recession with what you hold in today's marketplace? And then in personal recourse debt, we see this as a big problem. Many investors who own their own properties have recourse debt at the bank. Again, at this stage of life, I don't know many of you on this call, but I'm at a stage where I don't want to have recourse on my anything. I want non-recourse debt. In the DSTs, it's turnkey. The debt is assumed by the investors on a non-recourse basis. So you're able to transfer that balance sheet debt that you currently have. That debt goes away. You now have property-related debt at the DST level, but you do not have personal recourse anymore. It's a huge deal for a lot of investors. So what do you get when you transition out? When you sell that property, you move from what we considered, again, the 3 T's of tenants, trash, and toilets to hopefully lifestyle 3 T's of tenants, travel, and tea times. And this is what a typical DST property would look like, a Class A multifamily. This is just one example. We deal with multiple sectors, both in all the major food groups. Would it be included in our DST portfolios? Self-storage, multifamily, manufactured housing, medical office, industrial, and obviously we can also do some specialty asset classes like hotels. We're very careful on that sector, but we do offer some hotel properties. And so multiple sectors, multiple strategies with multiple investment managers. We think that diversification is absolutely huge, multi-factor diversification. So what do you get with a DST passive ownership? You get newer properties, typically vintage properties, 2020 to 2021 in terms of construction. So recent new builds without any deferred maintenance still have warranties on the properties. Again, professional management. These are large global and domestic real estate investment companies that have billions of assets under management. And they're able to turnkey these properties to you as an investor. And they do all the rent collection. They do all the property management. They do all of the asset management. And what you're getting is passive distribution income every month. projected passive income every month with potential capital appreciation. Again, non-recourse debt. You don't have any debt on these properties. You'll have debt if you choose to add debt to it, but it will not be personal recourse debt. You'll get a new tax basis if you do add debt, so you'll get a step up, if you will, in your overall cost basis, which allows you to reset your depreciation clock, allowing for more write-offs against your income, producing a higher after-tax income. So I'll go right to the portfolio structure. What we do as Petra, I talked earlier about the why. We build personal optimized property portfolios. What's different about us is we are not acquiring a property, we are planning a portfolio. Back to our point of diversification. Number one determining factor in investment outcomes is how well diversified you are. And when the drawdown risk hits, we want to be prepared to have a broad enough portfolio that's not going to be completely correlated to one market, to one industry, one sector, or one property type. It's so critical to be diversified. So think of this as a set of building blocks or Legos that we're using to build individual diversified portfolios. Here's an example of a client that presented with an equity investment of $3.7 million, and they sold the property, had virtually no basis left. Property been owned for multiple years, over 2.5 decades. $3.7 million of sale price. They had some debt to replace, so we were able to absorb that debt inside the DST structure, but also add some debt, as we talked about earlier, to increase their overall new basis so they could add more depreciation and interest expense write-offs against their income, creating higher after-tax cash flow. So client presented with a 3.750 sale. If they'd have paid taxes using California's blended tax rates, including all the new taxes that have been added, they would have paid close to $1.5 million using a 40% blended rate. That's a lot of taxes, as we said, to lose. That's a lot of money to lose in terms of capital, but think about the earning power you've lost on that $1.5 million over the next 2 decades. So the actual net result to the client, had they paid taxes, would have only been 2.250. So $2.2 million if they'd have paid taxes. The goal here, obviously in a 1031 exchange, is to defer the tax, compound your wealth, compound your earning power, and disinherit the government, right? Let's be honest, that's the goal here, is to disinherit the government. Why pay that legacy wealth that you could keep for the next generation? Does make sense. So benefits of a 1031, pretty obvious, pretty plain. So now the key is, what did we do with that $3.7 million of earning power, of replacement capital? What did we do with it? We were able to invest that into a portfolio, going back here, of 3 different DSTs comprised of 10 properties. And ultimately, we got them into 4 states. So Florida, Georgia, Texas, and Virginia. So 2 tax-free states. So 3 programs, 10 properties, 4 states, with 3 different sponsors and 3 major sectors of real estate: industrial, storage, self-storage, and Class A multifamily. So in this example, we were able to reinvest within days of the closing into this portfolio, representing multi-asset, multi-strategy, multi-sector, and multi-state. So again, very broadly diversified portfolio for an individual investor. We were able to generate, in this case, $178,000 of free cash flow, or distributable cash flow, on that $3,750,000 of equity investment. And again, additional debt was allocated to the portfolio to build a portfolio that had about 51% leverage. So the investment of $3,750,000 also was added to that non-recourse debt of almost $4 million. The total investment value was $7.6 million. That's the replacement value of the portfolio, including the non-recourse debt. So that portfolio is producing a 4.7. This was built last year. We've seen a little bit of adjustment in cap rates. They've finally seen the cap rate market is showing, or the cap rates of real estate. And again, this is sector specific, but we're seeing a slight movement in cap rates to adjust for the higher interest rates. but because there's still so much liquidity in the market, we're not seeing as much movement as you would expect. So our average portfolios, we're trying to build to about a 4.7 to a 5% cash on cash return without capital appreciation. That's just the cash flow. And we're trying to build to a 4.7 to 5, depending on the risk profile of the investors. We do have properties that go all the way up to 6.5. But again, we're going to blend those with some lower risk properties so we can find a equilibrium of a risk adjusted return. We think a 5% return with passive income, with high quality institutional grade properties is a fair rate of return in today's market, particularly when you add in the tax efficiencies. So in this case, we had a 4.7% starting cash flow blended over 5 years. It worked out to be a little over 5% because each year we do expect NOI growth based on the rent growth, the CPI indicators or the CPI inflators and or contractual rents. That's all built in. So we do project a growth rate across the 5-year holding period, which is an estimated hold. These properties have a maximum hold of 10 years, but we do expect a turnover in about 5, which is based on historical averages. So the pre-tax, the cash flow, distributable cash flow is a little over 5%, blended over a 5-year term. The pre-tax equivalent yield is 7%. We think that's an important number because you absolutely have to factor in the benefits of depreciation and interest expense into the cash flow to get to what we call a pre-tax equivalent yield. So what this would say is if you were to earn 7% on a fully taxable instrument like a bond, you would end up in the same place. You're going to earn 5% on your DST portfolio. So it's very important to understand and extrapolate the tax efficiency of the real estate. So that's the overall portfolio we built for a $3.7 million client. Our average 1031 exchange is probably pushing $1 million right now, but we've done clients as low as 200,000. And we can do this diversification that I just outlined for any dollar amount. Again, the smaller the dollar amount, the more difficult it is to diversify adequately. But with $1 million exchange, for example, we would probably look at 3 different positions for 300,000 per position. And again, build that multi-asset, multi-sector diversification that allows the client to have what we consider SWAN income, SWAN. It's an acronym, stands for sleep well at night. So we think the more diversified you are, the more SWAN income you're going to have. So that's my presentation based on DSTs, 1031s, how they work together, what the opportunity set looks like with Petra, building diversified portfolios in this environment where risk abounds. And we think now is the time for a flight to quality and a flight to safety. Jeff, I'll turn it back to you.
All right. Well, thank you so much. Could you stop sharing your screen and then we could see you a little better?
You bet. Thank you.
Great. And then also, you have some other people with us on the call.
Yep.
Are they set up for video, or are we just going to kind of hear their voice?
They'll be. They can be set up for. I guess they could hit their video
if they want.
If they want. Yep. You're going to get them audibly though.
Great.
Hey, Stephanie.
So introduce Stephanie and Jeff to us, please.
Okay, got Stephanie Jones. She's our transaction coordinator, investor relationship manager. She hails from Colorado. Jeff Smitherman on the call. Jeff's a retired U.S. Marine Corps Marine, and he's a colonel, was a colonel in the Marines, and
wow.
Amazing guy, and we're very blessed, very fortunate to have him. So Jeff, welcome as well to Petra and on this call. And then we've got Sandy Simmons down below. Sandy hails from Scottsdale, Arizona, and was in Orange County. Sandy works with many of our West Coast clients as well.
Awesome.
And then we've got our newest team member, Mike Chabot, who's on the call. Mike is in the process of getting licensed and is also one of the top residential mortgage brokers in the country, who's now getting his securities licensed and wants to work with us on DSTs.
Great.
Welcome, Michael.
Well, how did you attract this high caliber type of people here anyway?
Not through any of effort on my own. It's called the blessing. And ultimately, these are people that I've learned enough in life that there's very few people that you will trust to get in a foxhole with you. And I'm so blessed and fortunate to have a team of people literally that we would get in a foxhole with each other. So we have a great team, a great theme, and a great track record. And we just want to do the right thing for our clients. And we're very fortunate. We've got great clients, as I said earlier, from Maine to Hawaii. We help a lot of people. And this is the team that gets it done.
I always have to correct Brad and tell him that the Marine Corps calls them fighting holes, not foxholes. You get the intent. Glad to be here.
There we go. There we go. Well, thank you, Jeff, for your service anyway. And all right. So, now is the time. If you have a question, this is a great time to go ahead and put that into the chat and they'll get that over to me. And we do already have some questions queued up. And I forgot to mention that we do have a member orientation time. So you guys can jump on at 1:00 as well, if you'd like. But Ron in the chat, are DSTs and TICs the same or different?
They're different. Great question. Tenants in common, historically, up until about 2005, 2006, was the preferred structure for fractional ownership. And the difference is profound between DSTs. TICs require, number one, 35 investors. That's the max. So you're not able to diversify as broadly with only 35 investors being allowed in the TIC structure. That means the per investor amount is much, much higher than it would be in a DST. So we see that the TICs are limitation of the way to diversify as a way of diversifying. But the biggest downside of a TIC was the fact that the investor had to be on the title of the property. And that means they also had limited recourse under the debt. So TICs are different in the sense that they are direct ownership with the investors on the title, and they are individual borrowers inside the structure. By comparison, the DSTs, you can have up to 2,000 investors in a DST, not 35. So you're able to diversify much more broadly across multiple DSTs as an investor because your investment amounts are lower, and the recourse is confined to the real estate on the property. It's at the DST level. So it's a collateralized loan that's only secured at the property level, not individual investors. So huge distinction with a difference. Great question.
All right. On YouTube, we have Angelo. Is that $5 million per property per year of the sale or total of our assets being sold? And this might be referring to the ULM.
The ULA, the ULA mansion tax is $5 million is the value of the property itself. If it's 5 million, I believe it's 4% or 4.5%. If it goes over 10, it's up to 5 or 5.5. So I believe it's on the property value itself, the sale price.
Right. Okay. And so here's Maria. Some REITs are now distressed and dissolved with investors taking the loss. Some real estate risk with market changes, same real estate risks with market changes. How is this different from REITs outside of a trust or direct ownership?
First of all, REITs don't qualify for 1031 exchange treatment. They are a corporation, and corporations, again, do not qualify as direct ownership for purposes of a 1031 exchange. So the ideas behind a REIT is it gives you broad diversification, but it doesn't give you the full tax deferral going into a REIT. You do get some tax benefits once you're in it from the income, but you don't get the same tax deferral. So REITs and 1031s are different in that respect. Now, the way we construct our 1031 portfolios is it feels like a REIT because of the multi-property, multi-asset diversification. So we do try to bring in attribution of the diversification of a REIT with making sure we qualify the exchange for 1031 tax treatment. So just want to bring those two distinctions together. We are not a REIT, but we try to build portfolios that have REIT-like attribution for diversification. Back to the question about what's going on with REITs right now. Yeah, the market cap of REITs is about $2 trillion. Many of them are struggling right now, as we all know, with the higher interest rates and inflation. Certainly occupancy or vacancies have started to creep up, particularly in New York, with offices right now, we're at about a 36% vacancy rate. So the combination of slower earnings, recessionary environment that we're in, higher interest rates, and starting to affect us on occupancies, that is starting to affect the REIT dividends and the REIT distributions. As a result, the stock is falling. And so many REITs are seeing a decrease in market cap right now. Again, all REITs aren't created equal. You have to pick your sectors. You have to pick your strategies. You have to pick your investor managers of those properties or of those REITs. And that's why it's important that you know who you're working with, be able to decipher those risks. We have asset risk. We have location risk. We have manager risk. There's a lot of risks in this environment, and you really have to learn how to constrain, discover that risk, and price it appropriately. So discovering and pricing risk has never been more critical than it is right now. So REITs are still a vehicle for earning a distribution, but they're not performing today as well as they were, let's say, 9 months ago before the interest rates started creeping up.
Great, thank you. And on YouTube, we have Anna. So thank you for your question. What is the typical maternity term for the funds?
The DSTs, the typical hold period is, our average is about 5 years. Again, you cannot hold a DST past 10. That's effectively tied to the length of the maturity of the debt. So if you do have a 10-year loan, which is fixed rate, which you want in this environment, you want to make sure that you constrain your risk on the interest rate. You do have at least a 10-year hold. You have a maximum of 10-year hold. The goal is to sell these within 5 years. Historically, that's been the case. The idea is that you want to sell the properties after they have a seasoned history of rent growth. So you're going to maximize your exit value, and the fact that the buyers can assume that debt. The fact that these properties have been purchased with debt that's still in the 4.5, maybe 5 range is substantially lower than market today, as we've seen rates have increased over the last 12 to 16 months. And now we're up to almost 6.5 to 7% for many borrowers to borrow on residential property. Many of our properties, Class A, multifamily, institutional grade property, are carrying a rate of 4.5 to 5. That's a rate somebody would want to assume in a market where rates continue to move up. You're assuming a below market rate, which adds more value to the property. So there is a strategy as to why we want to sell these properties in a 5-year window. Assumption of debt, and also with the value of the properties hopefully being higher with the NOI growth.
Great. Well, we have one more question here. So if you do have a question, now's the time to enter it while we answer Ben's question. How do you guys make money on these deals? Do you pay monthly, and how often do you? Oh, he's got 3 questions. So let's start with the first one. How are you guys making money? We're 501c3. We're not for profit, so we don't make money. No, I'm just kidding. Sure.
we give to charity, but we're not a charity. How's that? We actually are paid by the sponsor companies. These are professionally managed third-party real estate managers that put these programs together, like large multi-billion-dollar institutional companies. They pay our fees. It's part of just like a seller of any real estate pays a broker commission. We get paid by the seller of the DST, which are the sponsors. And we make roughly about 2.5%. If you want to know what the dollar amount is or the percentage, about 2.5% of the exchange value. That's equity and debt, the DST offered value. So again, not in many cases equal to, or certainly it can be lower than a typical real estate commission. So that's how we get paid. It doesn't affect the purchase value of the investor. I want to be clear on this. So if the investor comes with $1 million, they're getting their earning, they're getting their yield on that $1 million. Whatever that distribution rate is, if we're hitting 5%, that's 5% on that million. That's $50,000 a year in distributable income. So our fees are not reducing the investable dollars on behalf of the investor. I want to make that clear. The fees are paid by the sponsor. We do have closing costs. In addition, this is real estate. So you still have appraisals, you have title, you have escrow fees, you have third-party inspections, you have engineering. All of those things go into the cost basis of the real estate, but that's all included in the purchase price to the investor.
Got it. All right. Do you pay monthly? So how does this work out? They're giving you a couple million bucks here. So what are they? How are they getting it, and how often?
Distributions are calculated annually for purposes of the distribution rate, but they are paid monthly. So using my example earlier on $1 million investment with 50,000 in a 5% earnings yield or distribution rate, divide that by the 4 months or 12 months, you're about $4,000, a little over $4,000 a month.
All right. So you guaranteeing 5% here?
I did not say the word guarantee. Did I say that?
Okay. Let's be clear now.
Do you have my compliance officer on the other end of it? These are real estate securities. Remember that disclaimer I put up front?
Yeah. Okay.
So not an offer to buy or sell. No guarantees. There's no such thing as no risk, just mispriced risk. And that's what we tell our investors. Just know that we don't predict disaster, but we can anticipate risk. And that's the difference with Petra. We've got one of the most heavily researched DST databases and scoring models for our DSTs of anyone in the country. So when we build a portfolio, the framework or the blueprint of that portfolio is de-risked as much as possible, but no guarantees.
All right. So how about reporting? They want to know what's going on. So is that a monthly report with that distribution, or do you do just yearly, or how does that work?
The reports come in monthly distributions, quarterly reports, basically the profit and loss, if you will, for the operational aspect of the property, so everybody knows how they're doing. Kind of a reminder of what we paid, what we're earning on our returns, or what we're earning on our equity, and just a property performance overview of how it's doing. And then annually, you get a tax reporting package called a grantor letter. And that includes a statement of revenue and expenses for the property, as well as the cost basis between the land, the building, and the improvements. And that allows the investor to then turn that to their accountant, their CPA, or if they do their own, but most people don't, and be able to apply the depreciation schedule that they carried over from their prior property, along with the new basis that they got in the new property. And they can combine those two depreciation schedules, and that would give them everything they need to file their Schedule E on a tax return. So they're going to get a revenue expense statement at the end of the year, plus a cost breakdown, and that all rolls up to their Schedule E.
We got Michael here on YouTube, and I like him because he likes a single family residence. He's curious, are there any DSTs that are comprised of only single family residences in a particular geographic area?
We do. One of the most popular, fastest growing segments of multifamily is what we call horizontal living, which is single family rentals, or build to rent as it's sometimes called. And we do have communities that are available through the DST structure that allow investors to have exposure to that asset class. We just had one in North Carolina. I believe it's sold out now. It was in Charlotte. It was 86 units, all single family, built to rent community, brand new. I believe the average rental rate was about $1,850, $1,800 per unit. So it was a little bit even, right below market in terms of its starting rents. And that asset sold out very quickly because a lot of investors want to have exposure to that single family rental space. Again, people like the idea of a yard, a little bigger space, and with the idea that there's still a community built around it. So we see that as a very popular strategy inside of multifamily right now. And we like the space a lot.
And then he also asked, are there DSTs that purposefully offer less exposure to rent control risks? So you guys buying in California and Portland?
No, we're not. We're diversifying people away from that state, the great state of California. We are focused on the properties that are typically outside of the state of California. A couple of reasons. Number one, tax laws are not as favorable clearly in that state. We all know that. Secondly is we don't feel like we're getting the same value for the real estate in terms of capital appreciation potential. So we like the idea of buying properties outside of the state of California. We think there's more growth potential. And we also think there's certainly less of a friction or drag on the income because the state taxes aren't as well, you still have your income state taxes you pay, but the property level taxes are much, much lower outside of the state. So multifamily is probably our highest percentage of asset class represented, about 50 to 60% of DSTs are multifamily, Class A, and that could include single-family rentals. The other 40% is comprised of industrial, medical, hotels, and what we call essential services, retail properties. So an example of portfolio for us would be for $1 million, we would probably allocate something to credit tenant industrial, like an Amazon distribution facility, put some into multifamily, Class A, and maybe drop some into a medical facility, maybe a surgery center, rehab hospital, something that's backed and guaranteed by the hospital credit itself. So medical, industrial, multifamily, that would represent a nice portfolio blend for us.
So for these investors, would they be able to buy just multifamily if they wanted?
They could. That's the beauty of our model. It's very, very collaborative. And so once the investor opens up our DST database online with us, they can go through and literally pick the properties that they want to use to build their personalized portfolio. And if they want to overweight to multifamily, they can. If they want to balance it between income and growth, credit tenant net lease properties, and multifamily for inflation protected growth, they can build a balanced portfolio. All of that access and that research and those technology tools are built into our platform that allows the investor to have a personalized and customized approach. So they can weight the portfolio and balance it any way they want for risk and return. It's a highly differentiated approach versus a product sale. This is very much a portfolio planning session that we do with our clients.
Cool.
And again, it's a lot of money. No, that's a lot of money. They need to get it right. They don't get a mulligan, in our view. So investors have to get this right. There's no do-over, especially at this stage of life. So very important to us that we carefully and prudently manage risk so that we can have long-term results with both distributions as well as potential capital appreciation. Investors do get capital appreciation in DSTs, 100% of the capital growth. If there is any, I want to be clear, potential capital growth goes to the investors in addition to their cash flow. Sponsors do not participate in the capital growth of these investments. They can't, prohibited under 1031 exchange rules. So investors have two ways to grow their wealth in the DST. One is income, the other is growth or capital appreciation.
Great. All right, Maria, can you please clarify what a sponsor is and their role?
Sponsor is a third-party investment manager. Think of a mutual fund. There is a plan sponsor, a mutual fund manager, if you will, that picks out the properties or picks out the different funds that they're going to use to invest in for the mutual fund. They call it a fund-to-funds approach. Same thing in a DST sponsor. These are people that own and operate real estate professionally with REITs, with funds, with other types of structures, and they also provide DSTs as a complement to their other funds that they actually manage. So these are large, well-capitalized, professionally managed real estate companies that operate billions and billions of dollars of properties under management. DSTs are a subset in many cases of their offering types. So third-party professional managers and asset managers, they do all of the rent collection, they do all of the property acquisition, they do all of the disposition, they handle everything on behalf of the investor. And there's about 35 sponsors in the market right now that we work with, 35 DST sponsors.
Great. And Dave on YouTube, on a $1 million investment, the 4.7% return, not guaranteed, is it on 1 million or is it on 950,000 after that commission?
It's on the million.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. Investor gets credit for their buying power is based upon, just like a buyer of a piece of property from a seller who pays commissions behind the scene, that investor is still paying the dollar amount to the buyer. The buyer is paying that property amount to the seller. That's the value of what they're getting, is whatever they're paying the seller. So the investor in this case is the DST buyer. They're getting value for whatever that investment they're making in that DST sponsor or portfolio that we build together. So they're getting full credit.
Cool. All right. Let's see. Broker with a heart. Essentially, you're selling a security and the real estate is the asset backing it. So what it is and where it isn't important to be the investor, right?
It is
So what it is and where it is not, maybe location, is important to the investor, right?
Sure. Yeah, 100%. And that's the beauty of our power of choice that we give investors using our database, is that investors can come in and filter our database any way they want, by state, if they want tax-free states, we can filter that way. If they want properties with no debt, all cash, they just don't want debt, regardless if it's non-recourse, they can filter the portfolio or filter the database by all cash properties. They can look for properties that are in a specific sector of real estate, multifamily, industrial, medical. So we have the ability for the investor to slice and dice cross spectrum of a portfolio. They can see everything in our database, and they can go in and isolate exactly the attribution or the fundamentals of whatever they want to purchase. And they have the ability to mix and match and build those portfolios using our technology tools. So absolutely. Investors
And then they ask, what's your target region? So it sounds like it's pretty much anywhere that isn't adversarial towards investment, but do you have a target area, region?
DSTs are offered typically nationwide. You see a lot in the Sun Belt. When I say nationwide, again, don't see many opportunities in California, but everything else outside of the state typically is available. Lots in the Sun Belt. We see Florida, North Carolina, that area is really popular right now. Texas, of course, has been very popular. So all the way into Arizona. So I would say Sun Belt is probably where we're predominant. But we have properties right now, for example, in Madison, Wisconsin. We have a U.S. surgical glove manufacturer that's located in Wisconsin. They're offering DST interest in a facility that manufactures sterile surgical gloves throughout the world, and that facility is in Wisconsin. So that's available. So properties are everywhere, but investors can try to be specific, regionally specific, and we will try to help find a property there.
All right, and I know Sandy is in Arizona, correct?
That's correct.
All right, there he is. All right, let's see here. Maria, do multiple owners and management companies hold title of their own properties and participate in the portfolio, or one corporate ownership of the portfolio?
Sandy, I want to pull in Sandy, you want to address that?
Yeah, happy to. So generally the sponsor does not take ownership in the DST portfolio. Some do in minimal amounts, but the property through the trust is actually 100% owned by the investors. Is that what we're looking for?
I think so.
Got it. Yeah. And it's a fractional ownership. Understand that if you bring $1 million in on a $100 million property, well, then you're going to own 1% of all the cash flow, all the tax benefits, and so forth.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Sandy, for that one. And then here's our last question. Okay. So Angelo, again, great question. So 45 calendar days run very fast. When is the right time to start working with your company? So give us, what kind of lead time do you guys need?
I'm going to let Jeff, you want to field that one?
Before day 44.
We try to avoid 911 1031s when we can, but we've never lost a taxpayer.
That's right. Interestingly enough, there are many opportunities for DSTs to come in on the up leg or the replacement property side. In fact, one of the largest deals that was done, portfolios put together, happened in short order within about 2 weeks, 10 days, for what effectively was a $60 million portfolio. But that was heroic work. Nobody slept. It was before I got there. I still sleep. But it could happen during the 45-day window. Ideally, because DSTs are not well known, just education early to understand an option as somebody's considering listing, as somebody is approaching a closing, and once they're actually under contract in that window, then you really want to get a good understanding of what are the sectors, what's in the market, go through what we call the POP and do that portfolio build. Product does come in and close out and move. So to do it 6 months ahead of time is a little premature. but educating to understand. We're regular in terms of engagement with clients, with CPAs, their legal team, to get an understanding. But then once you're at the point where you have a contract, folks seem to be serious about ready to look and see what the upleg is. I would say that one of the things that's probably advantageous is just knowing that you have a DST option and being comfortable with that space. A lot of times with clients of brokers can actually get listings by basically taking that client who's on the fence, who can't answer questions 2 and 3. Question number 1 is, when do I sell this thing? Question 2 and 3 is, how do I manage the taxes? And then 3, what do I do in a 1031 transaction? Where do I go with the money? We answer 2 and 3 so uniquely and so well that a lot of times it's actually an impetus to list and sell.
Great. Brad, do you have any final comments before we sign off here?
I believe that, again, as one economist put it, also we're living in the axis of upheaval where political, social, and economic unrest all collide at the same time. And if there's ever been a time for safety and a time for quality for investors, it's now. And I believe strongly in what we're doing to give investors, again, democratized access to some of the highest quality institutional grade properties they could find. And they could certainly never buy them on their own because of the size of the properties. We're talking $100, $200, $300 million acquisitions. But fractionally owned, individually owned, and building a portfolio of these types of properties, I cannot stress how important it is in this environment to be diversified for risk. You got to diversify away the risk. We see what's going on in the market. We see what's going on in the bond market. We see what's going on in real estate in general, residential. And right now is not a time to be overly concentrated in any one asset class or any one strategy. So if I could make an appeal to investors on this call, it's they've worked a lifetime for return on investment, ROI. Now's their opportunity to achieve ROL, and that's called return on life. And if we have the opportunity with our technology tools and with this team, and this is only a part of our team that's on this call, we have others outside of this call that could make it today. But between our technology tools, our platform, and the team that we have, we will absolutely provide the investor with an exceptional experience that we will support with integrity and expertise. And we think both are important in this environment. So if you give us a chance to work with you, let us show you what we can do. Let us open up our database, actually have an interactive call with the clients, with the investors, and let us build a portfolio that is personalized and customized to match the investor's risk tolerance and investment objectives. That's what we do. All right.
So I have one final question.
Sure.
And this is going to put you on the spot because when you guys came on last time, I think it was December of 21, and your Google, I think your reviews looked pretty good. What's your BBB rating today? I'm putting you on the spot.
It's excellent. Is there a different? No. We don't have, I don't know that we've actually gone and got a BBB rating. We have plenty of references from clients from Maine to Hawaii, including a $60 million 1031 DST portfolio that we built last year for a client. It's one of the largest that has ever been done in the history of DSTs. And one client was $60 million. And we did that, as Jeff said, in 2.5 weeks. So it's those are the types of investors we help routinely. Not that large, of course, but all of them are equally important to us. They all present with a need, and we're able to accommodate that and build a portfolio that satisfies exactly what they're trying to accomplish. We have clients that we can give references all day long, and we love to do it. So
sure. Now, and so everybody, like, if you don't have a rating, it's because nothing bad's happened. And, with BBB, you have to like pay money for them to set it up, and then they just give you an A until someone says, until you don't resolve something. And so anyway, I always like to look at BBB just because they give you that opportunity to correct an issue if there's one. They don't even have a rating because no one's complained to BBB. And anyway,
we think our clients generically looking at a BBB rating isn't the same as picking up the phone saying, "Can we trust these guys?
Right?
Are they good people? Are they have they performed well for you? Did they provide an exceptional experience for you?" And those are the kinds of people we hope our investors can talk to.
Well, great. Well, everybody, thank you for joining in with us. This one went pretty long, and you guys all had good questions. I know there's a couple other questions in there. And if we could get I think we get their phone number up, their email, their website, if we could get that going on the lower third, would be great. And just why don't you tell us your phone number, just so, yeah, there it is. I see it. It's 719-649-7770. And Brad Watt at petracapitalproperties.com. So all that is showing up on the screen. And anyway, we definitely appreciate you. And everybody, yeah, you just give them a call. You can see how they respond, see if they answer the phone, see how they answer your questions.
We'll try to earn that triple B rating.
Right, you got to earn it. You got to earn it.
Absolutely. Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you, take care.
Apartment Owners Association. Thanks for your time. And thank you, Team Petra. Bye-bye.
Okay,
Thanks,
see you later.
Bye-bye.